This time, by far the greatest team, pre-season specials.
Never no more, 'cause I'll stay a wild rover forever and
more. Hello and welcome to By Far the Greatest Team, a podcast in which football fans attempt to decide once and for all who is the greatest football team of all time. My name's Graham Dunn, and together with my fellow self-appointed arbiter of football greatness, Jamie Rooney, and our guests over the various weeks, we have covered over 13 dedicated podcasts and an end-of-season review. We've put 28 teams under the microscope of greatness. Each week, we place them into one of 5 primary categories of greatness, from all-time greats at the top through true greats to touch of greatness in the middle, before dipping down to edge of greatness and our bottom of the tier category, blinkered greats. You can check out all the teams and our rankings so far at our website, chewingthewildrover.com. Do keep in touch, do keep listening to the back catalogue, and before we speak to you again for the prime season, enjoy our pre-season friendlies. So for this week's bite-sized pre-season friendly, we're looking at, quite aptly, given the start of the Women's World Cup today, we're looking at a classic women's team. And Jamie, this is sort of the first women's team to win the World Cup.
It is, yeah. It's an unofficial tournament in 1970 in Italy, sponsored by Martini and Rossi. The drinks manufacturer, producer.
Mm-hmm.
And the team we're talking about is Denmark, who went to Italy and they won what would be the first Women's World Cup, but it wasn't given any official tag. It was only recognised by the Italian Football Federation, and it drew incredible crowds. And as a consequence of those crowds, I think Martini also saw some opportunities and were able to sponsor every team to go to the next World Cup in 1971 in Mexico, a year after the great Brazilian team had defeated Italy in that classic final. The women of Denmark, Mexico, Italy, and England would take part in the second World Cup for women. After that, the story goes a bit pear-shaped.
Yeah, very, very definitely. Now that 1970 team and tournament it's quite a kind of limited tournament, I guess, isn't it? It's very reflecting the status of the women's game there. And Italy seems to be quite a strong country for women's football at the time. Is that coincidental?
Yeah, so Italy had set up the Women's Football Association a couple of years before 1917, 1968. And this is at the time, if you think back, Graham, when we had the incredible Gail Nushamon talking to us with the Dick Kerr ladies. This is about the time where women's football in England is banned. Banned from 1921 to 1971. And other countries have followed suit. In Brazil in particular, women's football was deemed illegal. It went against nature and it was an illegal activity. You know, these sad tales of organisations seeing themselves fit enough to stop women from playing football was common practice. But fortunately, the Italians had seen opportunities, and through those opportunities were able to invite 8 nations to compete in the first Women's World Cup in 1970. Only 7 participated. Czechoslovakia, a country that no longer exists, they were also invited, but they had a few visa issues and they couldn't take part.
The idea of women's football being illegal, I mean, that's quite draconian, isn't it? Not since, I do remember hearing many years ago that there was, I think it was Cardiff were due to play, I think maybe it was Bournemouth, it was someone down on the south coast, and Cardiff's fans had a bit of a reputation, travelling fans had a bit of a reputation at the time. They were banned from attending the game. The local police guy on the radio and say, anyone heard speaking with a Welsh accent around the ground will be arrested and rejected. Which that was quite draconian.
Oh,
it was quite a draconian
if you've got like Di and his wife on holiday enjoying some beach
Yeah,
life,
exactly.
walking around saying, "No, it's quite lovely. Yeah, I like it. I think we should move it." And suddenly getting arrested.
Oh, in the back of the van.
It's not so good now, isn't it?
Yes,
With their
yes,
accent.
not good, not good. So, Denmark in Italy. So, how does that tournament go for them?
Pretty well from the off, really. So they are clearly head and shoulders the strongest team, and against quite a backdrop because Danish women's football again was encountering the same problems that English football was encountering. Brazilian football slightly different, where they were suppressed by the men. Misogyny was in place in full flow, and it was hard for these ladies to organize themselves because of the rules that put in place. So a lot of the players that went to these World Cups in 1970 and 1971, and we should say they are unofficial World Cups, FIFA have attached absolutely nothing of themselves to them on these tournaments. So they are classified very much unofficial. But a lot of the players would have been teenagers. So they would have been teenagers because there would have been no opportunities for them once they got to adulthood. So, some of these players that went to the World Cup, and especially, in 1971 in particular, England, they didn't go as England. They actually went as Harry Batts' Chiltern Valley team. Harry Batts, a bit of a local hero in the Bucks area. There's not a lot of information. Sadly, he passed away in 1985, but he would organise football teams and for women, and I think he was held in quite high regard with the women he organised teams for, but he ran into some problems with the Women's Football Association when they tried to organise things in 1972. But just to get back, so there was a player that went to the 1971 World Cup for England called Lee Calab, and she was 13 years old. So the the girls taking part in these World Cups were, between the ages of 13 and 19, and there wasn't a lot beyond that because clearly, at that point, there was no organised football for them.
And it is a strange tournament. So in that, there end up being 7 teams in the 1970 tournament, and when you look at the game, it's quite curious. So the first game is England beat West Germany 6-1. In fact, they're 5-0 up at half time, and then England play the winners of Denmark v West Germany. So West Germany, having lost to England on the 6th of July, then I think because the Czech Republic or Czechoslovakia at the time couldn't travel, West Germany get a second chance. I mean, they've already lost the first game 5-1, and they're 5-1, and they're 4-0 down at half time. And so West Germany gets to play Denmark. They have a second crack at it. They lose that one 6-1.
Yeah,
they're 5-1 down at half time. That doesn't feel the most fun, does it? 2 cracks at the tournament, absolutely get totally hammered.
It feels like one of those second chance things that you think, yeah, that's great, that's brilliant. Okay, yeah, I think we can turn this around. Yeah, we can organise ourselves in this second game. We can get this right. We're back in this. We might actually go on and win it. But no, they
I mean, England must be much better than Denmark. I'm sure it won't be as hard again. Denmark did prove more challenging. Denmark beat England in the semi-final 2-0 and end up playing the host nation, Italy, in Torino for the final, don't they?
They do. Final and the third and fourth place playoff between Mexico and England are all based in Torino. And the games spread right through Italy. So it wasn't just the north of Italy. The south of Italy were involved as well. So there were games in Bari, there were games in Napoli, Naples. So the whole of Italy has embraced this. And clearly you've got the backdrop of Martini and Rosso, who are doing their thing, but they're generously sponsoring and giving the girls, as they are, not really ladies because they are teenagers, they're giving them exposure. And they're getting crowds again. When we've gone down this road with the Dick Kerr lady, 1920s. These football matches are getting crowds, and they were getting somewhere between 30, 40, 50,000 for these matches. So, these are not light attendance figures. These are big attendance figures.
Denmark win the tournament, though actually Mexico are kind of the stars of the show, aren't they?
Probably very important to point out, Mexico were the only team in this tournament that weren't from Europe. So it's something a bit different, and it's quite bizarre, because if you kind of compare this to the backdrop, West Germany, let's go back to West Germany, 1970-71, West German football is pretty strong. Bayern Munich are becoming a force in the Champions League. They're just kind of shaping themselves, and they're going to dominate. West Germany will go on and win the Euros, the men's team in 72. They go on and win the World Cup in 74. Mexico is hosting a World Cup. It's the first time outside South America and Europe that a World Cup is being hosted in another continent, in North America. So there's an appetite for football in these regions. So it kind of doesn't surprise me that much that Mexico's that kind of delicious ingredient that people tune into. And
they beat Austria 9-0.
Yeah, that's where I was leading. I just couldn't get myself there.
Mexico win 9-0. They're obviously quite good at football. Austria are very, very poor. Again, Mexico's achievement then goes some way, as you pointed out. Winning it, 1970s already, a strong performance from Denmark. But it is, I think, probably it's really what happens the following year in 1971 that really brings more gravitas to it.
Yeah, I think it does. So to kind of give you a bit of context, when Denmark won the first World Cup in 1970, I think when they got home, there wasn't much of a big celebration. I think it was fairly muted. It wasn't like a really big popular story. Your national sports team can win a major tournament, albeit unofficial, and it still falls underneath the radar, and no one really takes any notice in it. But yeah, 71, it really kind of gets a bit more focus. I think there's a lot more money being ploughed in by the principal sponsor, which is the drinks company that we've mentioned from Italy. They pay for all the flights, they pay for all the travel expenses, they pay for the hotels, they pay for the kits. They paint the goalposts pink and white, which seems a bit bizarre, but I guess they were trying to reach out to a more feminine market. At the time, that made sense. Doesn't seem to make a lot of sense right now. It's a lot bigger, and the crowds really do turn up in serious numbers.
This is held in Mexico, so the year after the 1970 World Cup. And I mean, what is quite curious is the tournament itself is quite good, but qualifying remains something of a lottery. So, for example, Argentina qualify out of a group of Argentina. Everyone else pulls out.
Yeah.
England qualify through a group of England, from what I can tell, despite it's still a struggle to get the teams together, despite probably indicative of the time.
It's also they get no support. I mean, whilst they've got a bona fide sponsor that's willing to put the money in, there's no real support. The associations aren't, other than the Italian Football Association, I think the Mexican Football Association, they're not getting any support. They're getting no support from their home nation in terms of their participation, which presents challenges. So these things take organisation, and when you don't get the backing of your football association, it's going to give you additional challenges that you probably didn't want. But so yeah, it must be tricky to organise these things when you've got certain people that don't want to help and certain people that don't want you to go there.
Yet, once they're there, the interest in the tournament, attendances were extraordinary. So the opening match, the Mexico-Argentina at the Azteca, reportedly 100,000 in the ground to watch them. Unreal.
It is unreal. It's incredible that any sporting occasion could get that amount of people interested to pay money in. I mean, I don't think it was particularly expensive. I think they were talking, it's only a few pesos that they were paying, but nevertheless, to take the time out to watch all that football when it's in an unofficial guise it's quite incredible.
So, as the host tournament and host nation, and with their kudos high after their performance in the last one, Mexico really one of the favourites for this tournament. They're in a group with Argentina and England, and now England don't make it, do they?
No, England lose both games. So they lose 4-1 in the first game to Argentina, and then they also lose to Mexico. I think it's important to point out that this really wasn't England. They were called England, but this this is a team representative of teenagers put together by a guy who we've already mentioned, Harry Batt, and they're Chiltern Valley. That's the team. So this is a guy that's organising football in his local area. So it's not representative of the best football players in England at that time, because at that particular time, England had just literally come out of a ban from the FA, a 50-year ban, women's football.
Yes.
So it's no big surprise that there wasn't organised football, even though women were organising themselves and they were playing football.
Mexico and Argentina qualify on one side. Denmark are in a group with Italy and France. Both Denmark and Italy beat France in those opening rubbers, so they go through to the semi-finals. So we get to the semi-finals. Mexico beat Italy, so the host nation make their way through, and Denmark playing Argentina, and it's very comfortable for Denmark, isn't it?
Yeah, they win 5-0 against Argentina. I think Argentina were a bit sore about the whole thing as well. I didn't think they took the defeat really well, but when you've been beat 5-0 by the current holders, they are the best team in the tournament, then you just got to lick your wounds and take your medicine, I think.
This sets up the great final between Denmark and Mexico, but before that, of course, we have to have not only the third and fourth place playoff, we have the fifth and sixth place playoff between England and France.
Yeah, football doesn't do this very often, but other sports do. Hockey does this. If you think of the Olympic hockey tournament, they will play off right down to the last place, and it's very inclusive. I quite like it. It's kind of making everyone feel a part of it. And there's a brilliant article on the BBC called "The Lost Lionesses," and it's really worth a read. We'll share the link in social. And these players were recognised in the Euros recently as well. So some of these players were recognised finally after being unknown for so many years. And, some of the players still have the medals they picked up in that fifth and sixth place playoff. And they're very proud of it. And they should be very proud of it. So, for that story alone, I think it's great that they did decide to keep the tournament inclusive and get everyone playing off.
Yeah.
Albeit for England, I think it was still not the position they wanted.
No. So Denmark have their shot at retaining their title against the holders, Mexico, at the Azteca Stadium. From what I can tell, there's just the 110,000 people in watching that one.
It's quite incredible because if you go back a year, in 1970, when Brazil played Italy at the Azteca, in the men's World Cup, the attendance, I think, was 108,000. So the women's unofficial World Cup between Mexico, I think being a host nation probably influences the crowd a little bit. And Denmark, the current world champions. So you've got your dream matchup in the final. But nevertheless, 110,000 is an incredible number. And it really does show that there is an appetite for women's football back in 1970. We know there's an appetite for women's football in 1920. But these ladies have been up against it because not everyone wants to see women playing football at that particular period.
Absolutely. Denmark come out champions. They win 3-0 in no small part to a hat-trick by Susanna Augustusson. And so Susanna Augustusson, who scores the hat-trick, that was the Jeff Hurst, as a 15-year-old, which is quite impressive. And as a 15-year-old, that is at the start of her career. She plays a huge amount for football in Italy over the corresponding years. So she joins Bologna in 1974. And she finishes her career in 1995. This is kind of 24 years after scoring that hat-trick for Denmark in a World Cup final. 24 years later, she's still scoring. And during her career, she scored something like, I think it's 600 goals. She was, over a 20-year period, playing in Italy's top league. So really quite an impressive effort.
It is an incredible effort, but it's also quite a tragic tale because if you look at her international career, she's played 4 games and scored 4 goals, and it all happened at the very beginning of her career. So as an international, because of things beyond her control, she's not able to have an international football career playing for her country. She has an amazing career, as you say, in Italy. And I think there's a contender for one of the teams she played for your favourite team names, which is a team called Alaska Lecce, which, that's pretty good. I don't know how you come up with Alaska Lecce. Lecce in the south of Italy, and Alaska in the north of the United States. Brilliant combo. I can't imagine she's a young teenager, 15-year-old, scoring a hat-trick in the World Cup final that doesn't get talked about because it's unofficial, not like Jeff Hurst, is denied a football career at the highest level playing international football because there is no organised football for women because it's frowned upon.
Are there any further attempts at World Cups after this?
Well, in the 80s, you get these little World Cups. I think Italy, again, with England, tried to garner and get stuff going. But they're tournaments that are not really worth talking about because you need the authorities behind you. You need your football associations backing you, which women have always struggled to get. And you need FIFA and UEFA backing you. Now, there was a bit of a tragic tale. I think maybe another story for another time. It's worth looking up. Harry Batt and Chiltern Valleys, the ladies. So he was the guy that put these teams together, and I think he's held in quite high regard. But yeah, it wasn't until 1991 that FIFA started to kind of put their weight behind women's football. So they tried a World Cup in China in 1988. That went well. Again, the crowds were massive. And then in 1991, they kind of helped organise women's football, but they didn't put their name to it. It was called something ridiculous like the M&M's Cup Women's World Championships, something crazy. Now, if you go to FIFA, they'll tell you that World Cup is theirs and it was always theirs. But at the time, it wasn't. It got very little backing. It was played in China and it was a big success. And it allowed the platform, deservedly so, for women's football to grow. And here we are today, the Women's Football World Cup kicking off in Australia and New Zealand. And we've got 32 teams competing for the first time ever. So It feels like women's football is finally, rightfully, at the top table in football. It's getting the support it should have had many, many years ago, but it's taken a long time. And it's a shame that stories like Denmark, who we're talking about now, who organised themselves and played in the World Cup, along with Mexico, Italy, England, West Germany, probably don't want to talk about that too much, and Austria even less. But the fact that these nations were able to organise themselves and go to tournaments, it needs to be forefront. It needs to be part of the history of the women's game. It can't be like hidden away as a dirty tale because they were oppressed at that particular moment. Off the soapbox.
So where do you rank that Denmark 70-71 World Cup winning team, Jamie?
Well, I think it kind of makes sense to put them in the not great, but without them, we won't be where we are today, because I think logically that makes total sense. But I can't help kind of steering myself, and I think I'm probably suffering from a bit of bias on this, sticking them in the edge of greatness, because they organised themselves at a time against angst where it wasn't welcome, and they proved to the authorities there was an appetite with the crowds, and they kind of flirted on the edge, and they were patient enough to wait until times were in a position where they can then go on and flourish into touches and all-time greats. And we've got women's football teams that hit those brackets right now. So I think, even though I think not great, but without them, we were where we are today, it should be the right place for them. I'm going to put them in edge of greatness because I'm just feeling a bit biased about it.
If it was just 1970, then I couldn't go with you. But I think the second year, heading to Mexico and actually from a football achievement, going out and winning in front of 110,000 fans in Mexico at the Azteca, that's quite impressive, isn't it? And it proves it wasn't just a flash in the pan. I think I'm with you on that. I think it's a reasonable call. So I think there we have it. Denmark's women's football team, 1970-71. Edge of greatness.
So that's all we have time for this week. A reminder, the full podcast returns in all its glory on Thursday, the 3rd of August. In the meantime, look out for our weekly pre-season friendlies. And a reminder, you can contact us on all our social channels, and we'd love to hear from you. And if you enjoyed the podcast, please subscribe, like, tell a friend, and pass on our details. And we'll speak again soon.